everyone, Diane here. Welcome to my studio today. I'm going to be doing a textured background first of all, using 4 colours, and then I'm going to show you one way of painting a cute hedgehog with a dragonfly for a companion. So let's get started. So today I'm using quinacridone gold, potter's pink, Winsor violet and cobalt blue, and I'm just spraying the centre of my piece of paper here. I've got watercolour paper stretched on a board, and I'm going to use a Isabey squirrel mop brush, and I'm just going to pick up at random dabs of different colour, and I'm going to drop it in loosely, like you can see, into the puddles of water that are actually on the paper, waiting for the paint to arrive. And I'm not going to interfere with the paint at all. I'm just putting it on and leaving it to find its own way across the paper and see what kinds of mixtures we can come up with. So I'm not coming in and messing around with it and trying to create anything. I'm just literally dropping the paint in. And where 2 colours meet, if they decide to mix and mingle, then that's entirely up to them. I might give them a bit of a hint and pick up my board and move it around a little bit. That's a good idea, especially if you end up with a large amount of water in one part of the paper. You can do that, and that gives a much more natural effect in actual fact than it would do if you tried to do it with a brush. So I'm adding a little bit more of a neutral kind of mix here of quinacridone gold and cobalt blue, and now I'm dropping in potter's pink along the side here. Potter's pink is a very highly granulating colour, and you can see as it hits the paper straight away, you can see it starting to form granular patterns on the paper, which is lovely because this is supposed to be a very granulated and texture full background that we're doing here. And now I'm dropping in, literally dropping splotches of olive green and just tapping my brush so that it releases paint in a fairly random sort of fashion. And now I'm adding to that some quinacridone gold. Again, not blending it with the brush. Just here I might have to lift out a little bit of water if I've got too much water there, but that's a case of judgment really. And now I'm splashing in some spatter of cobalt violet. And we have what looks like, you could almost say that was like an abstract painting at the moment. But the thing is, when this dries, it's going to look completely different. And you never know quite how it's going to dry. And in order to give ourselves lots and lots of texture, as well as the wonderful colours mixing and mingling, I'm going to use some salt and some cling film or cling wrap, saran wrap or whatever as well. And in a minute I'm going to show you how I do that. And just playing around here and dropping in a few more colours before we start with the texture materials. So I've finished applying the paint now, and I've picked up my little pot of coarse salt, and I'm just going to sprinkle some of that over the wet paint. And you can see as it hits the paint, you can see how the big grains of salt start to suck up the paint from underneath them. And then I'm going to also come in with some fine salt, which is ordinary table salt. The other one is a kind of sea salt, large grained salt. This one's much finer, and I'm dropping that in fairly liberally as well. And everywhere that the salt lands, it sucks up the colour and it gives you a shape of some sort or description underneath. So once I've got enough salt on there, or I feel there's enough salt on there, I'm going to go to my cling film. And I've got some cling film which has been used before, so it's all scrumpled up, and you will find that that will work much better than just cling film straight out of the roll. So if you don't have any that you're recycling, just give it a good crumple up so that it's got lots and lots of creases in it. And then just lay that down very gently over the top of the wet paint. And don't play with it, just put it down and just tap it into position very lightly. This is the crucial part, and soon to be followed by the second most crucial part, which is to leave it alone until it's completely dry. You can already see the pattern starting to form. You can't control this. You have to go with the flow. This is what you have to do. So put it to one side and go away and do something more important. Then when you come back, you can take the cling film off, brush off the salt, and you're left with something like this. Okay, so my background is dry now, and it's come out really nicely. And I suggest that when you do a background like this, you don't necessarily have something in mind for what you're going to put over the top of it, because it might not turn out to be exactly how you expected it to be. But what I have here, as you can see, is, I don't know, it looks to me like autumn leaves or some kind of leaf litter, something like that in the bottom of the painting here, and then we have a little patch of blue sky and some nice leafy background here. So the first thing I thought of when I considered this background was, why don't we put a hedgehog on here? And I thought that that would be rather a nice thing to do. So I have done a tracing of a hedgehog, which I had actually already done, and I'm going to draw something like this. So this is just to give you the idea, and this design will be available on our website, dianeantone.com. So the first thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to let you go and have a cup of tea, and I'm going to draw the hedgehog on the background and then come back, and before you know it, we will start to paint it. So see you in a minute. Okay, I'm back. Now I've drawn the outline of the dragonfly and the hedgehog in pencil, and now I'm going to go over this in ink so that you'll be able to see it more clearly. And then I'm going to use some watercolour paint to give it some colour, and then I'm probably, depending on how that turns out, going to come in again with some more ink, perhaps. It will depend on how this turns out, obviously. I might use some sepia ink to enhance things at the end. So for now, this is just an ordinary waterproof Stettler fine liner, and I'm just, you've probably, if you've watched any of my other videos, you've watched me doing this before. I'm just inking in the outline very lightly. And here we have our hedgehog, and starting with the eye as usual, and then I'm going to pop up to his little nose there and put in his mouth, and then we will draw the outline of his little face as he's looking up at the dragonfly there. And the good thing about using pen, of course, when you're doing something which is spiky like this, you can indicate the spines on the hedgehog by using broken strokes with your pen, which is actually really rather hard to do with watercolour. I'm not sure I have the patience to do all these little spines in watercolour, so another way to do it is to get rid of the texture and just paint in a few of the spiky bits. But so this is a different way from the way I did it before. The hedgehog I've got that I did before, I think, is this one. I think you might well have seen, where I really glossed over most of the spiky bits. So now I'm just putting in his feet down here, and it's so nice to have a background to work into. I'm really quite loving this this technique. Not to mention the fact that it's actually really fun to do the background. You can really just play with colour and see what happens, and then you'll be inspired by what you've created for a background as to what you're going to put on it. So it's all about giving up control, really, isn't it? It's all about giving up control. So I'm not going to go over the whole thing with this pen. I've just indicated the bit round his face there where he's got the spiky bits, and then all of this is spines, but I need to change the colour of that before we come back in to give more indication of the spines, which I probably will do using this ink, my Pelican sepia ink. You can still buy this. This is an old bottle, but you can still buy it from Jackson's or from Amazon. So you just need to go to the links below to find out where you can get the things that I'm using. Okay, so I'm going to put a wash of burnt umber over the hedgehog, and we'll see what we get next after we've done that. And of course, because you've got all these other colours underneath, you're going to get a variety of shades of brown in the hedgehog's body, which is cool. So we'll put plenty of brown in there, and maybe we'll drop in a darker brown, which we're going to mix from black mixed with burnt umber. Maybe we'll do a little bit of that. And let that run a bit. And then his tummy, which is going to be on the pink side, guess what colour I'm going to use for that? Potter's pink. So we'll just drop that in underneath, like that. And then we'll carry the Potter's pink up into the lower part of his face and a few bits around here. And we'll give him some nice contrasting feet. And a little bit of colour around his eye. And maybe we'll put some shadowy areas in. Just reinforce the bits that you've done dark and do them darker. So this is Winsor purple, Winsor violet, whatever. And if you hold the brush halfway up and use a brush with a good point, you can do strokes like that, light strokes, just coming out to give the effect of spines. They won't all work, but enough of them will work so that you get the effect. Okay, and then the butterfly, not butterfly, dragonfly. I'm going to drop in some blue to emphasize the blueness. It's already quite blue. And then I'm going to use my black Carrot Aquarelle watercolour pencil, and I'm going to just drop some nice black darks in there too. You sometimes have to pick up a little bit more water to make that work. You can dip it into your jar of water if you want, and then just make it a little bit more striking by emphasizing the shadows and things. Don't forget that's all going to dry lighter. Just pick up a little bit of excess water there and let that settle. And then coming back to the hedgehog, I think he needs a little bit of shadow to sit on, a little bit more shade in the undergrowth there. So I'll just pick up a bit more dark green and emphasize some of those shady bits underneath him. Not all of them, just some. And then I'm going to branch out into the ink. Actually, I have to let that dry and then I'll branch out into the ink. So I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so now we're dry and I'm going to start to just drop in little short strokes of ink all over the hedgehog to indicate his spines. This is probably not the most efficient way of doing this, but it is a way. If you use an automatic pen, that is to say a felt tip or something, then you're going to get much more regular spines. So if that's what you want, then do it by all means using a felt tip or something like that, or even a brush. And what I want to do is I want to make him stand out from the background a bit. So I'm just trying to darken down. I'm also trying out different ways of doing these spines, different directions. I think that might be a good way to do it, like pulling away from the body. And because this is waterproof ink, if when I get to the end, whoops, I want to change the colour, I can go over the whole thing with another wash. Say for example, purple or blue or something like that. Yeah, that is definitely the best way to do those strokes, sort of with your hand over the top of it and pulling in that direction. That way you get a pointed edge coming out, not going in. Okay, and then to make this match we need to do a little bit of brown here so that it's not utterly different. And down here it's going to be lighter, so I think I might come in with some gouache and do some light spikes on the tummy. And then maybe a few up here, as you wish. And you might want to drop a little bit of white into the wings of the dragonfly, for example, to distinguish that from the background there a bit. And so there we are. I think that's, I'm going to call that done. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you wouldn't mind, and visit our website dianeantone.com if you would like to have a sketch of the hedgehog that you can work on yourself. No charge for that. And is there anything else I need to say today? I don't know. The wind has dropped. It's suddenly gone quiet. Time for lunch, and I'll be back this afternoon to do another painting for you, so enjoy. Speak to you soon. Bye for now, everyone. Bye bye.